Hello everyone and most welcome to 1682 of the series. And we will today continue with the article of Bodmer's Drawn, Solomon and 666. And we are currently at page 305. And we have earlier discussed the double take by Farrer that Solomon was a type of Christ, but he is a type of Antichrist as well. And this contradictory aspect of reality is something we know exists. We know reality is constructed of antipodal polar parts, and taking in only one half will leave you with much less than half. I often think of the yin and yang symbol. No matter what you believe in, it is one of the best models for understanding that opposition is necessary to have anything at all. Yin and yang symbol could be said to explain why we have something rather than nothing. Neglecting the wholeness of the world, it's up and it's down, it's dark and it's light, will erode all of reality. And this is the closing of the Western mind. This is what we are currently observing in all strands of knowledge. Exclusion leads to nothingness or very little. And as I mentioned last time, Ian McGilchrist, in his last published discussion, the Bishara, particularly pointed to the complementarity of oppositions, why they are necessary. And I asked my dear colleague here that he copy that one, exactly, the address on YouTube, even better up in the address field there. And you put it into the chat field. Thank you very much, very kind. Fantastic. Well recommended. Well recommended. The Bishara lectures. The coincidence of opposites. And I think it's fair to say, and the investigations of E. McGilchrist, but also Julian Jens and others, makes it clear that we come from a history in antiquity where the coincidence of oppositions were the law rather than the exception. So when these texts were written, when the prophecies were made, when it was put to parchment letter, it was in the epoch of opposition, where oppositions were allowed before we had this enormous turn that happened somewhere in the 15, 16, 1700s, much later. And using the newer way of exclusion will effectively block understanding of these texts. We will have a very skewed, twisted, false picture of all text whatsoever. It doesn't confine itself, of course, to texts that are connected to Judaism, Christianity, Islam, but much more Roman texts, Greek texts. And of course, we can also mention that Heraclitus is hardly understandable today because we read him from this excluding modern way. Which is something that could be avoided. We are at the third paragraph, beginning with thirst. First, the specific verse in Kings 10 concerns the inordinate wealth of Solomon. Wealth that is, moreover, gained by means of exploitation of Solomon's own people. And his eschewing God's law indeed, the placement of 1 Kings 10:14 is strategic. For it invites the reader to consider how Solomon generates such a lavish revenue stream. A survey of the narrative of First Kingdoms reveals that Solomon organizes a carefully controlled and substantial infrastructure with administrative centralization, but among the most controversial of his initiatives is forced labor. The same infamous term that is used for the Israelites, labor gangs, imposed by Pharaoh in Exodus 1:11. This clear echo of Egyptian servitude has the effect of comparing Solomon's burgeoning regime to the tyranny of Pharaoh, and it is difficult to escape the inference that a proportion of Solomon's wealth is generated precisely through similar, if not identical, means of coercion. Perhaps well known, less well known, but equally troubling and illuminating is Solomon's reconfiguration of Israel's traditional tribal allotments into more favorable tax districts, usually governed by appointees with ties to the royal family. This implies that the king's lavish table in Jerusalem is supplied at the expense of ordinary Israelites, and the recounting of Solomon's nepotism at this point must be viewed as a subtle critique of his increasingly oppressive policies. More obvious and well-known is Solomon's rampant predilection for intermarriage. First revealed in his marriage to Pharaoh's daughter in Kings 3:1, but then shockingly unveiled in the disclosure of 700 wives of royal birth in Kings 11, 1-3. From a legion of surrounding and forbidden nations. These partnerships no doubt created a network of alliances that produced Solomon's military industrial complex, replete with the acquisition of horses from Egypt, surely symbols of a war machine, in clear violation to Deut 17:16-17. Finally, it should be emphasized that 666 talents of gold are received annually by Solomon, and combined with his ancillary revenue streams. This stockpiling of gold is likewise in contravention of Deuteronomy 17. Collectively, the above considerations form a highly suggestive allusion for the economic corruption described in Revelation 13. Second, the language of wisdom and discernment that one finds in Revelation 13:18 is quite at home in the traditions about Solomon and his wisdom. The legendary wisdom and Solomon, one might recall, is a divine bestowal in 1 Kings 3 that is given when God offers the new monarch a choice of gifts. Give to your servant an understanding mind in order to judge your people, to discern good from evil, because who is able to judge this great people of yours? Yet it should be noted that in context, this gift of wisdom is arguably framed as a kind of test of Solomon, since along with wisdom, God also grants Solomon wealth and long life. Solomon is ostensibly being tested. Therefore, to see how he will use his wealth and whether he will remain faithful to God for his entire life. Numerous interpreters, not to mention the narrative of First Kings, agree that Solomon did not, in fact, use these gifts well, and his persistent ignoring of the divine voice clouds his legacy as the nation's great temple builder. Then too, there is the fact that the temple is not the only cultic installation sponsored by Solomon. Immediately after the disclosure of his foreign wives in 1 Kings 7 to 8 narrates that Israel's monarch erects shrines for Chemosh and Molech. Notorious deities from neighboring countries who, according to the biblical authors, at least required human sacrifice from their devotees. Finally, one should note that the temple is not the most impressive construction project that Solomon undertook. His own palace is considerably larger and took almost twice as long to build. How exactly Solomon deceived the faithful Israel with his syncretistic practices and corruption of religion is beyond the scope of the present argument. Instead, we would simply submit that the economic duress and religious malfeasance that seem both patent and endemic in Solomon's empire combine to provide a rather clear picture of deeply distorted kingship that results in social fissure and political chaos. It is not difficult to see, therefore, how Solomon's own rapacious, dare one say, beastly total of 666 talents of gold that came annually to this monarch could become a powerful image in Israel's memory, ripe for appropriation in Revelation 13. To sum up this point, Solomon's legendary riches come in no small way at the expense of his people, and as a result of despotic monarchic rule. The unusual and memorable number 666 that is used in 1 Kings 10:14 as a kind of summation of this kind of despotism activates. For the readers who knows it, the exploitive economic practices of Solomon, since these are also at work and in spades in the evil empire of the beast. Four, counter evidence. Solomon in the Second Temple literature. Despite the apparent congency of the preceding argument connecting Solomonic despotism with Revelations 666, a possible objection might be raised in light of Solomon's profile in some early Jewish texts of the Second Temple period. The above discussion, following the narrative flow of Kings view Solomon in a rather negative light. But there is much that is favorably reported about Solomon in Kings. These positive elements seem to have been especially attractive in later traditions from subsequent periods and cannot be passed over in silence. the importance of Solomon's wisdom, for example, begins already with the pages of the Old Testament itself, where Solomon is associated with texts such as Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs. But Solomon's proverbial sagacity is also found in abundant supply in the wisdom of Solomon. The Psalms of Solomon, Odes of Solomon, and the Testament of Solomon. Solomon's profile is generally quite positive in these later texts, where he is somewhat surprisingly known not only for his wisdom, but also for his skill as an exorcist. The Greek title to the Testament of Solomon, for instance, is as follows. Testament of Solomon, son of David, who reigned in Jerusalem, subdued all the spirits of the air, of the earth, and under the earth. Through them, he has accomplished all the magnificent works of the temple. This tells what their authorities are against men, by what angels these demons are thwarted. Solomon's connections to exorcism are not limited to pseudographic text. However, but are also attested in other sources as well. I think we'll have to go to the quotes. It's page 306. Fourteen, 12 lines down, beginning with these partnerships. And it's about him marrying for alliances, commerce, trade, and in reflection of that, Ordner Strawn. These partnerships no doubt created a network of alliances that produced Solomon's military industrial complex, replete with the acquisitions of horses from Egypt, surely symbols of a war machine. And in clear violation of Deuteronomy 17:16-17. And this is to be remembered with the previous text where we discussed the Roman guilds and how religion in the Roman Empire was the same as commerce, exchange, industry, all intertwined, intermingled, or entangled, to use a phrase from reality, quantum physics. And we also discussed how that made religion possible. Because without this wholeness of opposition, none of the two parts are a potential reality. The second phrase is his building of the temple in Jerusalem. Still to this day famed as a temple builder. And further down, it says, that was my words. Finally, that's the quote from Ordner Strawn. A very interesting comment here. Finally, one should note that the temple is not the most impressive construction project that Solomon undertook. His own palace is considerably larger and took almost twice as long to build. And I would say this is once more the coincidence of oppositions. In order for him to do good, he must also do the opposite. Maybe not evil to build a temple for himself or a house for himself, but it is an important coincidental opposition. Without, there wouldn't be neither temple of goodness nor palace of his own ego, if you like. That phrase would be excused for the Venerable Solomon / not so venerable. I see that the further down is a mentioning of him being a great exorcist with skills. Page 309. Somewhat surprisingly known not only for his wisdom, but also for his skill as an exorcist. And in the quote it says, "Testament of Solomon, son of David, who reigned in Jerusalem and subdued all the spirits of the air, of the earth, and under the earth. Through them he has accomplished all the magnificent works of the temple, what their authorities are against men, and by what angels these demons are thwarted." And here I take it, temple is not only the stone temple, but the temple of his deeds, his action temple. Because without coincidences of oppositions, there is no action at all. I would like to have a sort of an illustration of this. And I know there is currently a whiteboard on Zoom, but I am not accessing it from the web Zoom. Put my camera on just slightly here. I'm not sure if that's visible. So this is the working procedure of anything in the universe, always in contradiction. We know nothing can exist without this. Doesn't matter if it's abstract, metaphysical, or material. All follow the same law. This makes for strength. This knowing, so to speak, I'm exaggerating now, but knowing the devil made him a powerful exorcist. Having the opposition of good within him made it possible for him to construct one of the greatest temples of Israelite history. Although, and this is often stated when we kill Christian, we know it from reality itself. The one-sidedness builds no strong structures. It leads to disorganized. It leads to the evaporation of the soul, the elimination of all. And I think that is the thing that is warned about in Revelation. We cannot be able, because we are constructed also from body, and that body is in need of oppositions. We will become stiff-necked, and there is mentioning that even in the Bible. because then you cannot hear the words of God. You will not be able to receive the gospel, and you might be in need of the Solomonic exorcist, to exaggerate a bit. Today we changed everything. In traditional Christianity, posture is enormously important and always upheld. In the apostolic succession from Christ himself, the posture is open, rich, and receiving. That has dramatically changed. It has become an unstable temple. The body is no longer the stability that opposition, or as it's also called, tensegrity, builds. We have become susceptible to the forces of destruction. And the only thing that can destruct, there is only one singular thing, is oneness, not having contradictions. It goes for galaxies, goes for atoms, goes for houses, bodies and souls, and the human spirit above all. And as we mentioned, there cannot be permanence without opposition. Then the soul just dissolves into water and disappears. Very inspiring text. Kalle, are you with us? Maybe some comments, and I will turn the camera off to save some.
Yes. Let me return to the text. Let me show you here. Let me return to the beginning. So we began with this text. Number of the beast. It says in 13:18 that it would be the number of the beast, but it says also that it would be the number of the human being. Is Solomon beast-like, and in what sense is he human-like? In what is it? It's not so easy to answer that question. If we take, so you should say the number of the beast and of human being is 666. This is what you read in Revelation 13:18. So they don't discuss it. We read it here. Human number. So it could be referred to human being Solomon as a human being. He is a Christ-like figure. In what sense is he a Christ-like figure? Okay, he is an exorcist, and Christ was a great exorcist. So there we have the likeness with Christ. And but there are also several things that that are different between Solomon and Jesus. Jesus didn't have wives, as far as we know. And Jesus didn't build palaces. And as for the temple building goes, Jesus said like this in John chapter 2. There's a famous quotation. Let me see if I have it about the temple. Temple here. No, it doesn't work. And he says about his body. So Jesus says to the Pharisees that they should, that he will rebuild his temple, that is his body, and I will raise it in 3 days. So it refers to his own body as a temple. And the Jews reply that the temple was built for 6 years. And I think they refer to the the temple built by Herod the Great, because the temple built by Solomon was destroyed long ago by the Babylonians. So the link is very weak, I would say. So it's difficult to say what sense Jesus is how Solomon is like Jesus. There is nothing peace like in Solomon, I would say. Okay, he perhaps enslaved his people in one way, but it's not perhaps in a literal sense being peace-like. And so I don't know. What do you think, Hans? Do you have any?
Yes. Well, I think also of the number, it's one of those numbers 666 in itself. That is, how can you say it, a bit too symmetrical. It builds symmetrical things, and therefore it doesn't contain oppositions. I just had barely time before to look into that, but it seems that the number itself is a bit off. It doesn't contain the healthy oppositions as a number 5, 7, 8, for example, that contains what we call irreplaceables. 66 is too even, symmetrical, if you like, in a not a good way.
What is, I think, important with Solomon is that people are impressed by him greatly, and that would be the thing that is Antichrist. That the Antichrist, he should not be a repulsive figure, but somebody whom everybody admires. So like Solomon, he is able to build an impressive palace. That is an egoistic trait, but of course, but he does also good, like you said, like building a temple. And he's able to build these huge alliances with Egypt. So people admire him. So in a worldly sense, he's very, very, very successful. He is very, very worldly. That Christ wasn't worldly. That is, he was not in the world. This Solomon, he tries to be successful in the world, so to say. In that sense, he's an antichrist, absolutely.
Yeah, where do you find that site stiff-necked? It's fallen out of my mind.
Yes, okay, so it's, let me give stiff-necked is in, let me see, stiff-necked. Yes, I will find that. Stiff-necked, I think it's in Exodus perhaps. Hold. Let me see. Yes, here, let me see. Are you able to see my screen? I suppose, yes. Exodus 32, 9. So God is disappointed with his people. I have seen these people, the Lord said to Moses, and they are stiff-necked people. We read in Exodus 32, 9. Because Israel had gone impatient since Moses was spending so much time up in the mountains speaking to God. And it was there that Moses received the laws. He was up there in the mountains 40 days and 40 nights. So they got impatient and they began to worship false idols. And then my law says that there are stiff-necked people.
It's so accurate. We know today when the neck becomes stiff, the body doesn't get that affected. You can still walk around and be present in the world, but all access to anything higher, like the soul and spirit, is completely blocked off. It's completely blocked off. Very interesting point. The coincidences are needed of oppositions. Well, I think maybe we should round up. We hit the 1 hour mark here and a bit more.
Yes.
I say thank you very much. Have a pleasant morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.